The young boy is pulling a box of ammunition through the smoke and fire of war. He's so brave, especially for someone his age, thrust into the brutal battlefield where merciless artillery shells rain down. An older soldier asks him, "What are you doing here?" Suddenly, a loud explosion rings out, and the boy's ears start ringing. The soldier tells him to open his mouth to relieve the pressure. It's then that the soldier notices the box of ammunition the boy is delivering. He immediately thanks the boy and sternly orders him to head back to safety. This boy is only 6 years old but has already made a name for himself in the army. Just a few days earlier, when he first arrived at the military camp, his body was covered in wounds. His name is Sergei. His village was attacked by the German army. They burned houses and killed indiscriminately. Sergei's mother and older brother were tragically killed. Sergei barely escaped through a window with the help of a neighbor, who was later killed by the Germans as well. Looking back, Sergei saw his home engulfed in flames. He cried out, "Mom, Mom," but no one answered. Now orphaned and with no home to return to, Sergei fled deep into the forest. It was a dangerous place, filled with artillery fire and wild animals. He stumbled several times, using only a branch for protection. He walked for a long time until he found a river and drank from it, his throat parched from thirst. Just then, Sergei overheard voices. It was a group of German soldiers. He quickly hid inside a hollow tree. But soon, another danger approached. A venomous snake slithered near him, flicking its tongue. Sergei was terrified, covering his mouth and shutting his eyes tightly, trying not to make a sound. If the German soldiers discovered him, his life would be over. The snake eventually moved away, and luckily, the Germans left soon after. Sergei crawled to where the Germans had been and scavenged some leftover food. He ventured deeper into the forest. His shoes were now completely worn out, and he had to wrap bark around his feet. When he was thirsty, he drank dew from the leaves, and when he was hungry, he ate whatever foliage he could find. At night, he slept on the ground. At one point, a hedgehog approached him, and Sergei, in his innocence, asked it, "Why won't you find someone to rescue me?" Amazingly, not long after, Soviet scouts found Sergei and rescued him. The unit's commander saw the boy's frail body and his injuries and felt great sympathy for him. He asked, "Where's your mother?" Sergei, hearing this, broke into tears. Everyone around him immediately understood his tragic situation and felt deep pity for him. The commander gently said, "Don't worry, you'll stay with us now." Sergei, still innocent, asked, "Did the hedgehog tell you where to find me?" Everyone laughed heartily at how adorable he was, and they gave him plenty of food. Despite being so young, Sergei had already been delivering messages and transporting ammunition on the battlefield. When he arrived at the camp, he was taken care of and quickly became the soldiers' beacon of joy amidst the harsh realities of war. Nurse Katya applied medicine to Sergei's wounds. The commander, worried about the boy's condition, found time to visit him. He even handed Sergei the gun he always carried with him, letting the boy play with it. Sergei lifted his shirt to proudly show the commander a drawing of a tank on his belly, and the commander couldn't help but smile. Katya and the soldiers all adored Sergei, and they hoped the commander would let him stay. However, the commander remained firm. It's too dangerous for a child to stay on the battlefield. When Sergei learned that he would be sent away, he became very sad. He told the commander, "I'll wait for you to come see me." That simple statement melted the commander's heart, as there was no one left on the battlefield waiting for him anymore. The commander decided to adopt Sergei as his own son. Sergei was allowed to stay at the camp, and the soldiers were thrilled. The camp's tailor even made a custom military uniform for the boy. Sergei proudly put it on and ran around with excitement. The commander told him, "To become a real soldier, you need to pass a test. You must get dressed before this matchstick burns out." Sergei eagerly put on the uniform as fast as he could, and by the time he finished, the matchstick had only burned halfway. Sergei passed the test, though it was clear that the commander had been lenient. Sergei was now officially a soldier, and he couldn't wait to show off to everyone. But just then, enemy planes arrived and started bombing. Sergei was rushed to a trench for cover. As he looked up at the enemy planes and heard the thunderous explosions, Sergei truly understood the harsh realities of war. After the attack, Sergei was deeply worried about his adopted father and nurse Katya. He ran around asking about them. A medic reminded him, "If you're a real soldier, you need to know how to help others." Sergei entered the infirmary tent and brought water to the wounded soldiers. He even helped an old soldier by reading a letter from his family, though Sergei made up some parts because he couldn't fully read it. Afterward, Sergei climbed onto a stone platform and sang folk songs from his homeland to comfort the injured soldiers. His actions helped them momentarily forget their pain. Through this battle, Sergei began to understand the great responsibility that comes with being a soldier. He imitated the adults, shaving in front of a mirror, and then stood at attention, ready to receive his orders. The commander gave Sergei the task of delivering letters from home to the soldiers in the camp. When they saw him, they gathered around joyfully, and Sergei told them that before they could take their letters, they had to perform a little dance to show how excited they were to receive news from their families. The soldiers were very fond of Sergei, and they immediately followed his request, performing a traditional dance for him. In that moment, Sergei found his sense of purpose in the camp, delivering letters to the soldiers every day without ever feeling tired. One day, he called out the name of a soldier, telling him that he had received a letter. But no one answered. The reason was clear: the soldier had already laid down his life. Sergei removed his cap and respectfully honored the hero who had bravely sacrificed himself. One early morning, Sergei, imitating the scouts, held a pair of binoculars and stood high, scanning the surroundings. Suddenly, he noticed a shoe moving in the grass not far away. Fearing it was an enemy scout, Sergei hurried back to report. The soldiers, though skeptical, followed Sergei's directions to the spot. They set the grass on fire, and the smoke soon forced the hidden figure to crawl out. Sergei peeked to see, and sure enough, it was a German soldier. The enemy tried to run but was quickly apprehended by the Soviets, who also seized a German tracking device. This device would help them avoid future bombing raids, and Sergei had made a huge contribution. However, Sergei didn't tell his father about this achievement, thinking it was just part of his duty. This 6-year-old boy was lying in the midst of a brutal battlefield. He quickly rolled into a trench and crawled up to the soldiers, eagerly asking how to fix the broken telephone wire. The battle had severed the line, making it impossible for the commander to communicate with the troops on the front, a critical issue in warfare. Sergei quietly followed the cable through the battlefield, crawling low to the ground, inching his way forward through the gunfire. Without a hint of fear, he pressed on until he found the communications officer. Unfortunately, the officer was too badly injured to repair the cable himself, so Sergei, quick on his feet, asked for instructions. After learning what to do, Sergei successfully reconnected the telephone line, allowing the commander to direct the troops again. The battle ended in victory. No one knew that it was Sergei who had solved the critical issue that led to their success. This victory marked the end of the fighting in that area, and the entire unit marched to the main base. Along the way, they stopped at a civilian's home to rest. Sergei, ever curious, looked down at the floor. The homeowner told him that beneath the floor were unexploded bombs dropped by the Germans. Realizing the danger, the commander immediately ordered everyone out of the house and sent soldiers to remove the bombs. After dealing with the bombs, they resumed their journey. Once again, Sergei had played a key role. However, they hadn't gone far before hitting a landmine. The large explosion scattered the unit in an instant. Sergei was disoriented, his head pounding, and his ears ringing. The commander was lightly injured, but fortunately, both of them escaped without major harm. They quickly regrouped at the main base. As usual, Sergei went to his father to receive his daily task. The commander assigned him the job of inspecting the soldiers' gear. Sergei ran off to check on the soldiers. Despite his small size, everyone listened to him. Sergei shouted, "If anyone has torn boots, step forward." He took on the role of a true supervisor, carefully inspecting everyone's equipment. Though he couldn't read, Sergei cleverly asked a nearby soldier to write down the list of missing gear. He then handed the list to the general, who was the commander's superior. The general was astonished and believed Sergei was destined for greatness. He even wanted to reward the boy. Sergei was overjoyed and asked the general to bless the union of his father and nurse Katya. The general agreed without hesitation. However, the night before the wedding, the German army launched a surprise attack. Sergei expertly jumped into a trench, but the commander was trapped beneath a tree. Sergei frantically called for his father, trying with all his might to move the heavy trunk, but a 6-year-old boy's strength wasn't enough to budge it. Sergei rushed to find help, and eventually, the commander was rescued. Due to his many achievements, Sergei received his first medal in front of everyone. To the soldiers, Sergei was no longer just a child, he was a true soldier, capable of defending his country. The movie Soldier Boy is based on a true story, and in real life, Sergei was even braver than portrayed in the film. He continued to fight until the end of World War II. After the war, he studied law at Kharkiv Law Academy and eventually became a prosecutor. Now, a question for you: do you think Sergei is deserving of admiration? If yes, comment 1. If no, comment 2. Thank you for watching, see you next time.